Go to slideshow.
There you go. Okay, you gotta get rid of this account too.
How you doing? Good.
See you again, Brendan.
Huh?
She said your head was like.
I have a massive head.
Look at that cute little camera.
That's the new SHP pet.
Oh, are you Gia pet?
We're doing it. We're recording it twice just in case it fails.
So I'm not going to speak.
Typing. They just
We just have to really do. I'm
correct you.
gonna interview you after.
No, you're not.
Get rid of everything.
Is that
So you're standing in the corner, David, with that thing?
I'm just gonna put it over here. But it only records a half an hour at a time, and then I gotta restart.
Should we try a different region because we get rid of that line? Maybe.
You know,
Huh?
HSA option.
No, I don't care about that.
Already there on top of that. You know, and then you have to say that the FSA too.
Oh, those are your glasses, Steve?
Like you said, outfits too.
They're not mine. Those are too funky for me.
They all sound. Yeah. And then you have the ACA.
Because they can't do that anyway.
Right. No, it's not nothing.
December something.
December 7th.
December 7th.
I thought you did. Pearl Harbor. Okay.
Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, December 7th.
I got time, but not.
More time to give them more.
So don't think we can
Over 2 weeks.
Well, I don't.
Yeah, anyway, I know.
Like every year.
Right?
Uh-oh, you hit the projector.
What did I do?
You hit power on.
Oh, jeez. Oh, you know what? You want to?
The resolution too.
No, now it's doing. Okay, so what do you want to do? What did I do? Source menu.
You just unplug it and plug it back in.
No, it's not going to change it. I don't think.
Then we don't know if we're.
We'll just run it that way, though. It's fine.
Yeah, but we don't even know if it's recording.
It's still recording.
Did the size get different?
Yeah. So what do you want to do? I wouldn't touch anything. That size is different too. See?
Exactly.
I think it's the same.
We're good.
It's the way they made the. They didn't make it full screen.
Okay. So now I'm paranoid to go over there.
You got a tripod?
No.
Is Kelly the only one carrying it?
She should be, yes.
Is he pushing off to the sides?
It's hard to get to here too. Right.
Yeah. I don't sure to make sure I understand.
Yeah. Oh, that's what you were talking about.
Is it like the Mackenzie Eye?
Sure.
How about all that?
Yes, I'll stay.
David, are you?
Yeah, we're all ready to go.
You're all ready to go?
Yeah, it's already recording.
All right, well then I'm gonna just quickly introduce a couple of our key players here. And we'll try to keep this to an hour, so that you all can get back to what you're doing. But I believe everyone will hold themselves available to answer questions if you had like particular questions that you might want to ask, just on a one-on-one basis. Everyone will stay. Yes. To answer questions. So Chris Mulry is going to be presenting to you all the benefit options that will be in place for 2019. And she's got some backup singers here to help her through. But I'm just going to yield the floor to you, Chris, and let you get going. All right.
Thank you very much. Well, like Meg mentioned, my name is Chris Mulry. I'm from Align Employee Benefits. We're the benefits broker that works with your HR team in terms of the benefits that you have in place. Okay. Also here we have Joe Luciano from KeyBank. KeyBank is the HSA administrator for SHP. We have Amy Daly from Aetna, the medical carrier. And then also we have Brendan Canning from My Health Math. Some of you may be familiar with My Health Math. Hopefully you are. You should have gone through, or you had the opportunity to go through a interview process based on your health plan utilization. So you should have also received a report last night. You may not have looked at it yet, but a report last night that will hopefully provide some guidance in terms of your 2019 elections. Okay. Brendan, actually, do you want to speak to that report
Sure.
just before we really get into the
So again, the purpose of My Health Math is to help employees understand their own utilization and how your utilization goes through each plan to estimate total cost by plan. So how we do that, you should have seen an email announcement about the program. There's a link on that email announcement into our appointment software where you choose a time and you give us your contact number, and at the appointed time we make a phone call out to you. We have a 10 or 15 minute discussion about your upcoming year and what you think your health needs are going to be in terms of utilization. You know, you think about what happened last year, what may be different moving forward. Maybe someone's been putting off a knee operation in your family. We go through your prescription drugs, all that information, and then we take your individual information, put it through our software, and give you a 3-page output report. So 180 of these went out last night. So did anyone receive one yet? Okay, I'd like to see all the hands. Awesome. You know what the report could be used for here, not just in terms of total cost estimates by plan, but if you're considering the high deductible plan with the HSA, we give you an estimated figure for your out-of-pocket estimates. Now, that is pretty much saying if you choose this plan from the information that you gave us, you're going to spend this money. So you may want to consider covering those out-of-pocket expenses with how you fund the HSA. You also get worst-case scenario. So if above and beyond what you are expecting, if if you were to get hit by a bus, let's say, and blow out all the caps in the plan, that's what the worst-case scenario is. So if you're looking at a big worst-case scenario, you can also use the HSA funding mechanism to fund against that risk of the worst case scenario. So the front page, total cost estimates by plan. The back pages go into the details of where all that stuff comes from, including we ask folks if they were to choose the high deductible plan, at what level do you think you would fund the HSA, and that goes into your personal customized report. Did anybody have any questions about anything that they saw, what they received? Was it a good experience? Would you suggest it to folks that maybe haven't done it yet? I actually am going to have my computer up after. If you haven't signed up, I've got the link live, and we can sign you up for an appointment.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Brendan. Do you have the mouse? Thank you for that. So we're right now for SHP going through the open enrollment process for 2019. So this is the time of year that you can make changes to your benefit elections. You can change from one plan to the other for whatever reason. Okay? You can add or drop a dependent from your coverage. Okay? The like I said, this is the one time of year that you can make those kinds of changes. In the event that you choose not to make any changes right now, the only other time of the year that you can make changes is if you have a qualified life event, and you report that event to Human Resources on a timely basis. Qualified life event being, for example, you get married, you have a baby, your spouse maybe changes jobs and their eligibility changes.
You get a dog.
I wish, right? I wish. So you also have the opportunity as part of this process to elect your optional life and AD&D benefits, your short-term disability, and I would highly encourage everyone to also participate in SHP's wellness program as well. Okay. A couple of important dates to remember. Okay. Any coverage elections that you make now as part of annual open enrollment will be effective January 1st. The deadline that you have to submit those elections by is December 7th. Okay? So very important to keep those 2 dates in mind. Again, December 7th, you have to make your elections by. Those elections will be effective January 1st. In terms of the benefit highlights for this year, for 2019, the carriers that are currently in place will remain for 2019, for the new year. The one exception to that is the fact that your life AD&D is accidental death and dismemberment coverage, and also your disability benefits are going to transition to Anthem. Okay? Right now, the carrier in place for those coverage lines is Lincoln Financial, so those are going to move to Anthem. Okay? The health reimbursement arrangement, the HRA, is going to stay in place through Group Dynamic on both medical options. You will also continue to have 2 coverage options available through Aetna. Okay? Basically, the same plans that you currently have in place will remain for 2019. The one change that will apply, and Amy will speak to this, relates to the formulary, the prescription drug formulary under the plan. But in terms of your co-pays, your deductibles, your out-of-pocket limits, things like that, those current provisions will continue for the new year. In the event that you are impacted by that formulary change, based on the medications that you've been taking or maybe a dependent has been taking over the recent months, Aetna will actually reach out to you directly to communicate with you regarding that specific medication and any alternatives that you may have. I already mentioned the fact that your life and disability benefits will transition to Anthem. Okay? For the time being, the health FSA maximum, the flexible spending account maximum that Group Dynamic administers, that's going to be $2,650. Okay? That very well may increase for 2019, but the IRS just hasn't officially announced what that amount will be. Okay? In the event that it does increase, a communication will go out, but right now that amount is, again, $2,650. Questions so far? Talk about the medical first. I'm actually going to turn things over to Amy.
Thank you.
It's just up and down on that.
Okay.
Just roll.
Thank you. Good morning. So I'm going to just talk about these couple slides that are going to highlight the different plans. It's not going to have everything spelled out, but just sort of the big differences. On the HSA plan, it's the $6,000 deductible, $12,000 for family. The POS has the $3,000 deductible and $6,000 for family. On the HSA, the coinsurance is covered at 100%, so after you meet your deductible, you wouldn't have any out-of-pocket in-network. Out-of-network, it would be 80% covered, and you would pay 20%. On the POS plan, you have 80% coinsurance. The plan covers 80%. You would cover 20% of that after your deductible's met, and 60% out-of-network. The out-of-pocket limit, which is basically the worst-case scenario that you would have to pay, would be $6,000 for the individual or $12,000 for family on the HSA plan, and the POS plan would be $5,000 individual and $10,000 for family. So everything else on the HSA will apply to the deductible. The POS plan has co-pays for office visits and specialists, and the HSA has deductible waiver for the pharmacy for certain medications. Your deductible will not apply to that if your medication is on that list. That list is available on Aetna. We can also send copies so that it's available to you as well. So you do have a flexibility in the network. You can go in and out of network. We definitely recommend you stay in network because there is such a big network that you shouldn't have an issue finding in network provider. But if you do choose to go out of network, this sort of illustrates the difference that you could be looking at paying. For example, you have a hospital stay that could be $20,000. After Aetna, if you're in network, Aetna would be having a negotiated rate, which would be a discounted rate. So your $6,000 deductible would apply. This is on the HSA plan. And then after that, you are covered at 100% because you don't have co-insurance. And then minus your HRA would be $3,000. So basically the cost to you would be $3,000 for a $20,000 hospital stay. That's on the HSA plan. Out of network, you're looking at a $6,000 deductible. You're looking at co-insurance of 20%, which would be $2,800. And then minus that 300 or the 3,000 HRA, you'd be looking at 5,080. But keep in mind that out-of-network providers they can charge whatever they want to charge. They don't have a contract with us. So we may allow $100 for a doctor visit. They may charge $200. So that difference you could be responsible for. That's called balance billing. So keep in mind you could be responsible for the full amount that the out-of-network provider bills you. So these are just illustrations. It could be higher if you're out of network. Any questions on that? Okay.
Can I just add one point to that?
Yeah.
If we go back to that slide for 1 second. Sure. So in this example, again, the out-of-network, in-network deductibles and out-of-pocket limits do not cross-accumulate.
Right.
What that means is that if you've already satisfied your in-network deductible of $6,000, and then you go for an out-of-network service or procedure of some sort, you're starting over. Okay. So it's certainly to your financial benefit, and also your continuity of care as well, if at all possible, to remain in the network.
Okay, this is where I was. Okay, so now this is an example of the POS plan. You have a $20,000 hospital bill after your deductible of $3,000. Then you have co-insurance on top of that, which would be the 20%. So then you're up to $5,000. The HRA will pay $1,500, so you would be paying $3,500 for that hospitalization stay. Out of network, you have the $6,000 deductible plus co-insurance of 40%. So then you're at $10,000 minus your $1,500 from the HRA, and you're at $8,500. So there's a pretty big difference there. Plus, as I mentioned before, you could be balance billed. Okay, so I'm thinking going backwards now. Okay. Now is it back to you?
Yep. Okay. Any questions on that so far? Okay. Thanks. So the health savings account. I'm not sure how familiar folks are with the health savings account. I think we probably have a fair number of people that are enrolled. But what the HSA allows you to do is you can use the funds in that health savings account to pay for your qualified health expenses. Health expenses not being just those that are related to medical, but also dental and vision as well. Okay, so you may have a health expense, for example, orthodontic treatment, that is not going to be covered under your medical plan with Aetna, but you can still use your HSA funds to pay for that out-of-pocket expense. Okay. You can also use the funds in your health savings account to pay for your qualified tax dependents. Even if they're not enrolled in your medical coverage through Aetna, under the SHP plan, you can use those HSA funds to pay for your tax dependents. Yes?
What if it's not a tax dependent, but you have them on your coverage?
You can't use HSA funds for a non-tax dependent.
So because I don't claim him on my taxes anymore, I can't use my SHA?
If you have if you're covering, for example, a domestic partner, let's say, okay, then you cannot use your HSA funds for your domestic partner's expenses. Okay. However, because that partner is covered by a high deductible health plan, he or she has the option to open their own health savings account. But you cannot use your,
I'm specifically talking about my child.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, you cannot
I
use,
can't claim him as a tax dependent anymore, but I can cover him until he's 26.
that's correct,
But I can't use SHA funds to pay for any of his medical expenses.
that's correct. But because your child is covered under a high deductible health plan, okay, that's qualified, that meets the requirements of a high deductible health plan, your child can open his own health savings account.
Yeah, that's
But
my,
does
I
the
mean, my
signature
child's
have-
7, so, I
They'd
mean,
have
but
to
I don't
take
claim
those
her, so I wouldn't be able to use my funds towards her. Okay.
But your child who's under 20, who's within limiting ages, meets the requirements in terms of let me rephrase. You may not be claiming your child on your taxes, okay, but they still are within the age parameters and the definition of a dependent.
Okay, my son's 20, so I guess I misunderstood.
Joe, do you want to
Well,
do you want to
what
add
I-
anything
What I
here?
would like to do is, I can give you my card, and you can send me, we can discuss this offline individually, because it can be sticky depending on each situation. But essentially, if you have a child and you're required to, so let's say in a divorce setting, where you share custody with a child, you're responsible for the health costs of that child per divorce decree, then that would apply in terms of you being able to, because you're responsible for the health costs of the child. And so, like I said, with those individual cases, why don't we circle back individually, and then we can get an answer to your specific case, because I don't want to give any blanket advice that may apply to one person, not to another. So at the end, please, I'll give you my card, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Will that work? Okay, thank you. So with the HSA option, you have the option to pay for your services either using your health savings account funds, or you can choose instead to pay for those expenses out of your own pocket and save the money that's in your account. Okay, the money in that account will accumulate. Okay, it'll grow with interest. Okay. Unlike the FSA, there is no kind of use it or lose it provision under the plan. Okay? So again, if you want to save the money in that account and pay out of your pocket for whatever that procedure is or whatever that treatment is, that's certainly your option. Okay? The other point related to the HSA is the fact that once the funds are in your account, the money is yours. Even if you were to leave the company, even if you were to leave SHP, or maybe transition to the point of service option that's not compatible with the HSA, the money in that account is yours, okay? You take it with you. Okay? If you're no longer covered under a qualified high deductible health plan, you can no longer make contributions to the account, but you can still use the funds that are in there. Any health savings accounts, contributions that you make to the account are on a tax-free basis. Okay? There are certain requirements, again, that apply for the HSA, but you also have the flexibility to adjust your HSA contributions throughout the year. So even if you say that you want to elect a certain amount now to contribute through payroll, and then something happens during the year and you want to reduce that contribution or maybe increase the contribution, you have that flexibility to make those kinds of adjustments. The IRS does have certain limits in terms of the contributions that can be made on an annual basis, but it is somewhat flexible in that you can adjust the amounts. SHP, as your employer, will also make a contribution to your health savings account. Okay? As well, you can make contributions outside the payroll process if you choose, or somebody else can make contributions to the account on your behalf. If you're enrolled in the HSA option, SHP will contribute $250 to your account, and then on a matching basis, they'll match up to $500 additional. So you have the opportunity to have an employer contribution of up to $750 total for the year. Okay. Now, I mentioned just a moment ago that the IRS sets annual contribution limits. Those limits include the $750 or the up to $750 that SHP will make on your behalf. So the IRS has announced that for 2019, if you're enrolled as an individual under the HSA option, the most that you can contribute to the account, again including SHP's contribution, is $3,500. If you're enrolled as a family, whether it be just a spouse or maybe just one dependent, that's up to $7,000. In the event that you're over 55 years old, okay, there's an additional contribution that's allowed. It's a $1,000 catch-up contribution that's allowed under the regulations. Questions so far, or other questions so far? Again, to open an HSA, you do have to be enrolled in a qualified high deductible health plan. You cannot be Medicare enrolled. You can also not be covered by, in any form, by the military. You cannot either make HSA contributions or open an account if you're covered under a non-qualified high deductible health plan. There's also a limitation in the fact that if either you or a spouse are participating in a full-purpose FSA, okay, full-purpose flexible spending account, you cannot have an HSA in place. That's not an SHP limitation, that's an IRS regulation. So in the event that your spouse, maybe through his or her employer, is enrolled in a full-purpose FSA, then you cannot have the HSA through SHP. So it's just something to consider. To account for that, there is what they call a limited purpose FSA in place. Okay? So what the limited purpose FSA allows you to do is essentially be reimbursed or to have FSA claims for dental and vision expenses. I'm not sure if anybody here is participating in the limited purpose FSA, but that's one option that you do in fact have.
Can I just add a couple things with the HSA?
Of course.
So the HSA, oftentimes people look at those maximums for that given year, and the question arises, what happens in that given year if my expenses, if I'm an individual coverage, I can only do $3,500 as a contribution for that year for 2019. What if I do get a health bill for $5,000? Does anybody know what that answer would be? You don't pay the $5,000 that year. You only pay up to the $3,500. Allow that health cost to roll into the next year. And the benefit of the HSA is really you can deduct all of your qualified health expenses through that HSA. And it's incredibly powerful, especially in light of some of the recent tax changes to our tax law. It's very difficult to write off health expenses outside of an HSA. So it behooves you to run those costs through the HSA. And if you don't have enough money in the HSA, that is okay. What you can do is set up a payment with the provider. Could be whatever you can afford, $25 a month, $50 a month. But the key is to run it through the HSA. Another option that's available to you is that you can reimburse yourself through the HSA. So if you do pay for something out of pocket with a credit card, let's say it's 0% for 12 months, I've seen this happen, where somebody put it on a card to get the points, you can pay yourself back through the HSA by saving the receipts. So you save the receipt from the credit card connected with the HSA in terms of how you're reimbursing yourself. So it can be a huge tool from a tax saving standpoint. And that being said, you do have the ability to make a contribution up until April 15th of the following tax year. Why that's important is that I have a lot of clients that will build up emergency savings, and then when it comes tax time, they can make the decision where to allocate funds, whether it's towards an IRA contribution, whether it's toward the HSA. And one last thing I would add about the HSA from a long-term planning standpoint, it is a huge tool in your toolbox to go into retirement having a large amount saved up in your HSA. And can anybody tell me why? What would happen if you were in retirement and you had a $10,000 health cost in retirement? If you pulled that from your 401k, what would that do? You're gonna pay taxes on the 10,000, and it could potentially raise you to a higher tax bracket. So something to think about as you're making these contributions. This can be a great tool for long-term planning. Just wanted food for thought, and we're gonna be doing some more education with the HSA, doing WebExes, recording WebExes, and I'm always here as a resource as well with any questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Absolutely, thank you.
With both plans, the HSA was the point of service option. There's going to continue to be the health reimbursement account, the HRA that Group Dynamic will administer. Okay? The HRA is available to fund part of the deductible under the medical plan. Okay? There is a claim submission to Group Dynamic that's required in order for the HRA to be processed, but that can be either emailed, faxed, or mailed, old school, to Group Dynamic. And then Group Dynamic will then send you a check directly to yourself for whatever the amount due is. At that point, you would pay the provider at that point. So for the HSA option, the deductible is $6,000 for an individual and $12,000 for a family. You'll be responsible for that first half of the deductible. Okay, so $3,000 in the case of an individual. The HRA would reimburse the last $3,000. Okay. The point of service option works in a very similar way, different amounts, but in a very similar way, in that your deductible is $3,000 for an individual. You're responsible for the first $1,500, and then the HRA will reimburse you the last $1,500. Yes.
So essentially, sorry, this whole thing is so new to me because I just started at the company. So essentially, my health insurance doesn't really kick in until I hit the $3,000 deductible, because I have to pay for everything out of pocket until I reach that point, right?
On the HSA option.
And then I'm also paying that monthly.
On the HSA option. So let me go back a couple of slides. On the HSA option, the column here on the left is your deductible is $6,000. Okay. After you hit that deductible, part of which would be funded by the health reimbursement account. Okay. But your services after you meet that deductible will be covered in full.
Right, I know,
Okay.
but I don't necessarily have that many. Like, my daughter gets sick, I need to take her to the doctor. I, have my physical. I have a couple prescriptions. Like, it's not. So I'm just trying to figure out what.
Yeah.
Because having that copay visit and things like that is sort of would be better for me, I think.
Sure, and that's entirely possible. So under the HSA option, in that example, you're responsible for the full cost of those doctor's visits or those prescriptions, for example, okay, up until you meet that deductible. Okay?
Unless it's preventative care too, right?
Right.
That's a great
And
point.
that's a big thing, which she might not know.
That's a great point
Yeah.
that I failed to mention. Yes, your preventive care under both options is covered in full, 100%, provided that you remain within the Aetna network.
Like physicals.
Yep. Yep.
And then
So-
you can use your health savings account money.
I was just gonna
to
say
pay
that,
for
your health savings account that's in Key Bank, you can use that to pay.
Right, but that's essentially my money as well, right?
But it's
The HSA funds are your money, yes.
That I'm
So-
contributing out of my.
Well, the company knows too.
It's a combination of your own money that you can contribute through payroll deduction, as well as HSA or SHP's contributions. Okay. So under the HSA option, your deductible is $6,000. Okay. However, you're responsible for the first $3,000. The HRA will pay the next $3,000.
Okay.
Okay.
So essentially, until I'm just. Alright, I got it.
Courtney, you'll have an excellent conversation with my health math. And they'll
Yeah.
help you there.
No, this meeting isn't just for me. Alright.
Now, the point of service option works a bit differently in that the deductible does not apply to all services. Okay? So if you have your office visit, for example, okay, you're going to pay your $25 copay for a primary care visit, or a $50 copay for a specialist. Okay, and then you're done from there. Okay, because again, that deductible does not apply for all services. Okay, or your prescriptions, for example. Well, if that's a poor example actually, but your point being that on the point of service option, the deductible does not apply for every service, whereas it does on the HSA. Okay. So again, just to reiterate, as far as the HRA is concerned, the group dynamic administrators, I just don't want folks to forget about that and forget that the HRA is available, okay? Because after you hit your portion, the HRA is certainly available and can fund the last half of that deductible. Okay? You have to submit the claim where it is available as a funding mechanism for you. Other questions? Premium contributions. Okay. And this information is also included in the information that either has been emailed out or will be posted.
Through ADP.
Okay, will be posted through ADP. Okay. So what this information here is illustrating is what the premium contributions will be for your coverage. Okay. There were some adjustments for 2019. Okay. But this is the total monthly cost. This is SHP's employer contribution to the premium. And then over on the far right columns here, we have the employee contributions on a pay period basis. Now the reason that there are two columns for the employee contributions is because there are basically two levels. Okay? If you qualify for the wellness program, okay, you get a reduced contribution amount than if you do not meet those requirements. Okay, there is a affidavit to complete, and just a couple of requirements that you have to satisfy in order to qualify for that wellness level of contributions. Okay, but these are the amounts that will apply on a bi-weekly basis. Again, those last two columns to the right. Okay, in the event that you are a tobacco user, then an additional charge would apply. It's a $10 surcharge per pay period. Okay, if, like I said, if you're a tobacco user. So we have the HSA option on the top, and then the point of service contributions on the bottom. In the event that anybody is covering a domestic partner, then IRS regulations state that your contributions for your partner's coverage have to be deducted on a post-tax basis, and any amount that SHP contributes towards your partner's coverage has to be treated as income. So just one other point I wanted to note. The opt-out credit that's currently in place for anybody who's declining coverage through SHP, assume that you can document the fact that you're enrolled in coverage elsewhere, through something other than a marketplace plan or a state subsidized plan of some sort. Okay? In the event that you're opting out of coverage, and like I said, you can document that you are enrolled in coverage elsewhere, the opt-out credit will be $76.93 per pay period. So that's on a bi-weekly basis. Okay? There is a form to complete if you will be accessing the opt-out credit. And the other requirement is that you have to say yes to the wellness program and meet those requirements as well. So what this example provides is an example of the HSA option versus the point of service option. Okay? This is assuming an employee only, so you're enrolled in individual coverage. And it also assumes that all of your services are accessed on an in-network basis, which, again, I would highly recommend. Okay? One of the things you have to consider, and this, again, goes back to back to My Health Math, is a very valuable resource, is not only what you anticipate spending in out-of-pocket costs towards your doctor's visits and any kind of procedures that you have planned, as well as prescriptions and things like that, but also what you anticipate spending in your premium contributions as well. Okay? Again, depending on how you're enrolled. Okay? So what this is showing is, again, for an employee only, there's coverage under both plans of 100% for preventive services. Okay? Maybe there's been an emergency room visit. Okay? Well, emergency room is subject to your deductible. So if you're under the HSA or the point of service, you're going to pay $900 for that ER visit in this example. Okay? Maybe you've had a couple of primary care visits and a specialist visit. Okay? So you're going to pay, under the HSA option, those services are subject to your deductible. Okay? So under the HSA, you're going to pay $350 for those services. Okay? Again, you can either pay for those services out of your pocket, or you can use your HSA funds to pay for those. Okay? Under the point of service option, the deductible does not apply for those office visits. So a total of those co-pays is $100. Okay? Again, $25 for a primary care visit and $50 for a specialist. Okay? Maybe you're on 2 generic medications, so that cost is $360. Again, this is just illustrative. So under the HSA option, the total of these expenses is right here, the $1,610. Okay? Under the point of service option, the total is $1,360. But the other component to this, and then we have the HRA that will be affected. Okay? In this case, because you haven't met the HRA levels for your deductible, okay, the HRA would not kick in. Okay, so your total cost, like I said, is $1,610 versus $1,360. But then the additional component is your premium contributions. So your premium contributions under the HSA option are less expensive than the point of service. Okay? So in this example here, the person who's enrolled in the HSA and has had these services is going to pay more, going to pay less than the person who's enrolled in the point of service option. Okay? So point being that you have to take both components into account when considering your options for 2019. And that's exactly where My Health Math comes into play in terms of helping you decide which option is going to be the best for you. Does that make sense?
Well, plus the 1,600 is going to be paid out of tax-free money.
Mm-hmm. Or could be paid tax-free money, depending on what you choose to do.
Might be.
Could be.
And if you go through the My Health Math process, we take that into account in the report, depending on how much you plan on funding the HSA and what's available and the tax advantage of that piece. If you're confused about any of this math, because I am, we can address like 90% of the issues that you may have.
And the point here too is that you don't just need like a major surgery for the HSA to be worthwhile. You're showing here that just little things like playing ice hockey and having to go to the emergency room and can still make up the difference and make the HSA worthwhile.
Sure it could.
Yeah.
Sure it could. And the other point too is the fact that the HSA is a savings vehicle. So unlike, for example, the FSA, which we'll talk about in a few slides, it's not use it or lose it. So you put money in that account, or SHP puts money in that account on your behalf, that money is yours. Okay. You want to make sure that, again, you use those funds appropriately so that you're not charged any kind of penalties, okay? But that money, again, is yours.
I have a question on that. To get the 500 match, is there a timeline for that?
It's on a pay period basis, I believe, right?
It's
the match
over the course of the year. So
Oh,
if you
okay.
wanted to put in $500 in the first pay period, you'd get your full match in that first pay period. if you wanted to put in $20 a pay, you'd be matched 20 a pay until 500 was reached.
So again, if there's up to $750 that you have the opportunity to get. This example here is a little bit more extensive. What we just looked at is somebody who's a fairly low utilizer of healthcare services. This example, like I said, is a little bit more extensive in that maybe the person has had, first of all, they've accessed the preventive care. So again, under both plans, those services are covered in full at 100%. Okay. But in this example, maybe somebody's had 2 emergency room visits. Okay. There have been some additional office care or office visits. Okay. And then also maybe the person is on 4 medications or 4 prescriptions. Okay. So in this example, the HSA, the out-of-pocket cost for the member is going to be $32.20, okay? But then that's reduced down to $3,000 because of the HRA. Okay? In the case of the point of service option to the right, those total expenses come to $27.20, which is then reduced down to $1,700. Okay? When you add in the employee contributions from a payroll standpoint, in this example, the person would pay more for the HSA option. Okay, but again, that's why it's very important to review that report, that My Health Math report that you have. Again, that report is going to be custom for you based on your usage, based on what you have for your services, your prescriptions, and so on and so forth. Amy?
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
This is Kelly. I actually hang up on y'all just a minute ago because I was trying to get off the news. The question on the HSA, you all were saying it could be spread out throughout the whole year. You can also do a different deduction. We have some people that on the first payroll of the year put all $500 in their HSA so they get the match immediately. So it does not have to be spread out throughout the year. I just wanted to clarify on that.
Right. No, that's a great point, Kelly. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about some tools and resources that are available to you through your medical plan on the Aetna website called Aetna Navigator. How many of you are registered already? Awesome, that's great. So this is a great place where you can sort of keep all your information together and check on your claims. You could look for providers, you can print out ID cards. So you could go onto the website or you could use the mobile app, whatever is easier for you. You can get a digital ID card if you don't want to, have an actual plastic ID card. You just have your phone and just show it to your provider, and that's an easy way to always have it with you. And what did I do here?
Do you want to go down?
Yeah, sorry, I'm going the wrong direction. Okay, so you can take a health assessment at the Navigator. You can keep your health records there, keep track of your, all your health information in one place. You can look up providers if you're looking for a new provider, or if say you're traveling and you want to find a specialist in the area that you are in, you can look that up there too, as well as on the mobile app. And you can also, you have a benefit called Teledoc, which, how many of you are familiar with Teledoc? Have you had to use it? How was your experience? Good? Yeah, good. It's very convenient. It's 24/7. It's basically like having a Skype, like a instant, what do you call it, FaceTime with a doctor. So you're talking to an actual doctor on, looking at them, where you don't have to leave your home or wherever you are. They can treat you, they can prescribe medication for you, and they're going to be a board-certified physician that is based out of wherever you're calling. So if you're in New York, they're going to be a physician in New York. If you're in Maine, they're based in Maine. They can call a prescription into your local pharmacy. So things like, earaches, strep throat, pink eye, things like that, you can use this service for. So it's great if you have children and it's like Saturday night and you don't want to have to lug them into the urgent care, the ER, because they have an earache, you know. So this is something to always keep track, you know, just remember that you have this benefit because it is so convenient and it's very affordable. So it's, it would be a copay of $25 on the POS plan, or it goes to your deductible on the HSA, but the most you would ever pay is $40 for the visit. So that's a lot less money than you would pay if you had to go to urgent care or ER. So these doctors are, on average, 15 years experience, so you're seeing someone who's very qualified. So what we like to recommend is that you just register for this so that you already have it ready to go when you need it. So it takes maybe 10-15 minutes. You just log on, create an account, it asks you a few health questions, and then you're ready to go. So we find that people are more apt to remember that they have this benefit once they're already registered. Any questions on Teladoc? Yeah.
I just have a question. So when you hit your, like 100%, when I hit my deductible, if I were to use it now, does it recognize when you go to log in that you don't have to prepay before, or do you have to pay it and then you have to get your money back?
That's a good question. I think that they can see that you've met your deductible and you wouldn't have to pay, but I can confirm that.
Okay.
I'll confirm that because that's a good question.
Is that
Because
right?
you're actually using a credit card to pay.
Exactly.
And then it goes through your claims.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
And is that for your dependents?
Yes.
As
For
well?
anyone covered on the plan.
They
Yeah.
have to go through the person that covers it. You can make the call itself.
Yes. Yes. So if you have like a child or college student,
Yeah.
they can use this. Absolutely. So it's in the U.S. It's not in Canada, or it's just, but it's in pretty much every. I mean, every state wherever you're traveling. So
you can use your HSA card to pay.
you can. Yes. Mhm. Right, there we go. Next one. Okay, so also you can complete, when you complete an online health assessment on Aetna Navigator and an online wellness program, you can earn a $50 gift card. So once we, the system tracks that, so once you have completed both of those, you'll be getting an email with instructions on how to cash in your $50 gift card. And then you can shop, you know, pick where you want to have your gift card from which store.
Can you do that annually, or is that just a one?
Annually.
Can we get it from Philip Reynolds, or do we have to do it from a non-tobacco place? No joking. No joking.
I keep going the other way. Okay, so the kind of online wellness programs are things for stress, nutrition, smoking cessation, depression, weight management. So those are the different types of things that you can choose based on whatever you feel like you want to focus on. Also on Aetna Navigator is a discount program where there's all kinds of discounts on fitness, gym memberships, nutrition products, hearing aids, acupuncture, all kinds of wellness products. I know that you can, and also like at-home products like blood pressure monitors, things like that. You can. I know someone told me you can do. Does anyone do Blue Apron or that Fresh Select? So those you can also get discounts on here as well, which is something to go check. And they update them regularly, so you can something you might want to check from time to time.
What about the Y? Has that been added yet?
So you just have to see on there. There's it'll direct you to a fitness number, and then they can confirm who's in there. Okay, did that one. Is that it? Okay, thank you. And I'm here. I'll be here afterwards if you want to come and ask me a question that you don't want to like shout out in front of people. Come and talk to me.
HSA, can we use that for loan sharks or casino debt?
I would say no.
Okay.
In terms of the other benefits that SHP offers, we have Delta. We have dental through Delta Dental. Again, life AD&D and disability, and then also the flexible spending accounts. So the dental benefits through Delta Dental will renew for 2019 without changes. Okay? So this table here, it just provides a high-level overview of the plan provisions of the dental plan. So you have a $50 deductible for an individual, capped at $150 for a family, but no individual member within the family will pay more than that $50 deductible. Okay? Your benefit maximum for each year is $1,500, again, per individual member of the family. So if you're covering, for example, a family of 4, all 4 of you will have access to that $1,500 maximum. Okay? Your diagnostic and preventive services, so things like cleanings and x-rays, are covered in full at 100%. Basic services, it being things like fillings and root canals, are covered at 80% after your deductible. And then major services are covered at 50% after your deductible. One of the very nice features of the SHP dental plan is the fact that you have an orthodontia benefit available for children to age 19, which is 50% capped at $1,000 per lifetime. I realize that that orthodontia is significantly more expensive, but we work with many clients that actually don't have orthodontia in place at all. So that is a nice feature of the plan. The other nice feature of the plan is the fact that you have vision discounts available through Delta Dental. They have a partnership in place with IMED. Okay.
On the cleanings?
Good.
Okay, go ahead.
If you have an extraction, does that go to your medical and then your dental?
It depends on the details in terms of if it's impacted or not. So it may, if it's impacted, I believe usually it's under the medical. But if it's not impacted, then it'd be under the dental, generally speaking.
So if it falls under the dental, as opposed to medical, does that go under the 80% or the 50%?
It depends. It depends on the specific coding of the claim in the provider, whether it's a basic service or a major or a more extensive major service. It would be dependent on the claim. Yes.
For the cleanings, I think at one point it was 4 cleanings. Did it change to 2 or is it still 4?
No, it's 4.
It's 4 a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Other questions? The premium contributions are going to remain the same for 2019. So you can see here that, again, similar to what we've already talked about on the medical, the employee biweekly amounts are the furthest column to the right. Okay, so those are not going to change for next year. I mentioned earlier on the fact that your life and AD&D benefits, AD&D being accidental death and dismemberment coverage, is going to be transitioning to Anthem Life. Okay, but the plan provisions are going to remain the same as those that are currently in place. Okay? So your basic coverage is 1 times your annual earnings. This is provided at no cost to you as an employee. SHP pays the premium on this coverage. So the basic coverage is 1 times your annual earnings up to a limit of $50,000. Okay? There is an age-based reduction schedule that applies, but again, that's at no cost to you. In the event that you want to elect additional coverage on an optional voluntary employee paid basis, you certainly have the option to do that. In the event that you're currently enrolled in the optional coverage, that election will continue through Anthem unless you decide to make a change. Okay? But your current election will continue with Anthem. So for the employee optional life coverage, you can elect coverage in $10,000 increments up to a maximum of 5 times your annual earnings or $500,000, the lesser of those two. You also have the option to elect coverage for your spouse in $5,000 increments up to a maximum of 50% of your own coverage. Okay? or $100,000. Again, the lesser of. Okay. Children, $2,000 increments, okay, to a maximum of $10,000. Now, in order to elect coverage for either a spouse or a child, you as the employee have to have coverage in place for the optional line. This is one time of year, again, similar to the medical, that you can make a change to your voluntary life elections. What Anthem has agreed to do is allow you to increase by one level up from what you currently have up to the guarantee issue, okay, without going through that additional approval process. In the event that you want to go over that, okay, you certainly have the option to do that, absolutely, but the evidence of insurability process will apply. So Anthem basically needs to approve that additional amount.
What's
Yes.
the age-based
Chris and
reduction?
Kelly again. So when you say one level up, so if an employee has the voluntary life insurance at 20,000, let's say, they can go up to 30,000 without proving the evidence of insurability. But if they want to jump to 50,000, they would have to do the form. Is that what you mean by one level up?
That's exactly what I mean, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The age-based reduction schedule,
Yep.
what's the age?
At 65,
Okay.
the coverage will reduce. Which nobody here is close to that age, I realize.
A few of us.
The coverage reduces. What does that mean, it reduces? You don't get as much?
Right. So let's just say that somebody earns $50,000 or somebody has a $50,000 benefit, okay? Because that's the maximum that somebody could have. Well, if you're 65, then it will reduce to 65% of that $50,000 amount. In the event that you're 70, it's actually very standard.
You're more of a risk to drop dead.
Discrimination.
The next reduction. The next reduction is at age 70. It'll reduce to 50%, but after that, there are no further reductions. Again, that's a provision that's in the current plan, and again, is very standard across the carriers.
What if your intellectual age is only 15? Does that make a difference when you're 65?
I'm going to go to the next slide.
Chris,
Yes.
I have a question. So if you're in that age-based reduction schedule, and I'm not going to say at what age, but then increase it by that $10,000 increment to bring it back up to the 50,000?
You could, but the reduction schedule would apply on the higher amount as well.
Oh.
It also applies
So-
to the voluntary months.
It does. It does.
So if you
So
did the
there's no way to
10,000,
get it back up to 50,000? Is that what you're saying? You have to purchase?
Not in the basic. No, not in the coverage that SHP provides as the employer. Okay, but if you're enrolled in the optional coverage, okay, you can make an election to increase your amount by that one level up. Okay, but that same reduction schedule would apply.
Oh.
So instead of $10,000, it would be $6,500.
Right.
But
If you'd like,
what if I were to go like 20,000 over and above the basic? Can you
you'd
do
still be
that?
subject to the evidence of insurability process.
Yep.
Okay, but then assuming that that's approved, okay,
You're gonna get
then the reduction schedule would still apply. So it would still reduce by that
So
to
20
65% of that $20,000 amount.
So there's no way to ever get it up to 50,000? Is that what you're telling me, no matter how
could,
much
but you-
I were to purchase?
Yeah, no, you better go to personal
Ten.
insurance agency to get life insurance.
70,000.
Yeah, that's
You
what
need
I'm
to buy
asking.
additional
That's what I'm asking.
far and above that,
Yeah.
in order, and then it would adjust accordingly.
Okay.
Okay.
So you actually can, it's just gonna cost you more.
It's going to cost you more. Exactly right.
Understood.
Exactly right. Yes. Okay. The short-term disability coverage is again going to be provided by Anthem. Okay, that's transitioning from Lincoln as well. Okay, just like today, the base level of coverage will continue to apply, and that's paid by SHP. Okay, you also have the opportunity to elect additional coverage beyond that. That will allow you to increase your maximum your maximum weekly amount. Okay. So under the base coverage that SHP provides, the STD replaces your income of 60% of your weekly earnings to a maximum of $500. So in the event that your disability claim is approved, then that disability benefit would be payable as of the 8th day of your disability. Okay? And the plan would pay 60% of your earnings, of your weekly earnings, up to $500. Okay? Because SHP as your employer is paying the premium on that plan, any benefit that you receive on this piece of it is actually taxable. Okay? In the event that you earn greater than $43,333 a year, then you're actually going to be capped at that $500 amount. Okay? For that reason, we also have in place a voluntary, basically a buy-up level of coverage, okay, that allows you to increase that $500 limit to $1,000. Okay? So you have the opportunity to get that full 60% depending on your earnings. Okay? We have the rate here. Okay. Also in your benefit materials, there are examples in terms of how to calculate what that premium would be, okay, as well as what the benefit would be based on your earnings. Okay. But it is available if you want to increase that $500 weekly maximum. The long-term disability, again, will transition to Anthem. In the event that your disability claim is approved, any of the disability claims that you have are subject to an ongoing approval process by the carrier. Okay? What the LTD provides you is 60% income replacement up to $6,500 on a monthly basis. Okay? Again, subject to an ongoing approval process, but the premium for the LTD is 100% paid by SHP as the employer. Questions on that? The FSA benefits will continue to be administered by Group Dynamic. For those of you who may not be familiar with the FSA, these accounts allow you to take money from your paycheck on a pre-tax basis, and then you can reimburse yourself for certain types of expenses. So if you enroll in, for example, the healthcare FSA, you can reimburse yourself for medical, dental, and or vision expenses. Okay. In the event that you're in the HSA option, you have the limited purpose FSA, which is basically for dental and vision expenses. Okay. So you can pay for that orthodontia treatment, for example, okay, or that new pair of glasses that you need, okay, using your FSA funds. The health FSA maximum, or the range of contributions on an annual basis is anywhere from $260 to, as of right now, $2,650 for 2019. Okay. Again, the IRS very well may come back and adjust that upper limit. If they do, it'll probably be a very slight adjustment. But right now it's between $260 and $2,650 for the year. You also have the opportunity to carry over to the next year up to $500 of your unused health FSA funds. Okay. And that's in addition to your $2,650. So let's just say, for the sake of example, that you estimated for this year, let's just say you contributed $2,000, okay, for this year. Maybe you didn't have an expense that you're anticipating, so you have $500 left over in that account. You want to make an election for another $2,000 in 2019. Well, what you'll actually have access to is $2,500, okay? Because again, $500 of those unused funds from this year will carry over into 2019. Okay. The dependent care FSA is available for reimbursement of any kind of child care expenses, or maybe if you have an elderly parent who's a tax dependent, right? For those kinds of expenses. Okay. When I say dependent care or eligible dependents, the limitation for children is to the age of 13. Okay. So very similar to the to the healthcare rather, you can again contribute money from your paycheck on a pre-tax basis to an account that Group Dynamic administers, and then reimburse yourself for those expenses. Different from the healthcare FSA is the fact that on the dependent care, you can only be reimbursed up to the amount that you've contributed to that point in the year through payroll. Whereas on the healthcare FSA, the amount that you contribute or the amount that you elect is available from the beginning of the plan year. And then you'll continue to have deductions from your paycheck in equal increments throughout the rest of the year. Questions on the FSA? Unlike the medical and dental, or for example, the life and disability for that matter, even if you want to continue your current election amount for 2019, you still need to re-enroll in that benefit for the new year. This is just some examples of expenses that can be reimbursed through the Health FSA. Dental expenses, again, deductible expenses. This is all assuming that you're not enrolled in the HSA option. Again, if you are in the HSA, then you can have access to the limited purpose FSA, and that's for dental and vision. Alliant offers a service called the Benefit Advocates, which is available as a resource for you on an entirely confidential, no-cost basis. Okay? So if you have any kind of a question in terms of the way that, for example, a claim was paid, or maybe not paid, and you think that it should have been, okay? The Benefit Advocates are a resource for you. Okay? SHP doesn't know who's contacting the benefits or who's contacting the Benefit Advocates, or the details of anything that's discussed. That's completely confidential, and that's a point that I want to emphasize. Okay? It's much easier to ask the question of the Benefit Advocates and gain their assistance in terms of researching a claim issue. Okay? And we have had situations before where a claim has been denied and it should have been processed, or an appeal situation, for example, that the Benefit Advocates can assist on. So it's much easier to ask that question, not pay that bill if there's any question at all, ask the question, and then the result may come back that does in fact have to be reprocessed. Okay? So it's much easier to do it that way. The end result may come back that you are in fact responsible for the amount. It's much easier to do it that way as opposed to trying to recoup your money that you've already written a check for. So in your benefit materials, the contact information for the Benefit Advocates is included. Okay? They can be contacted by phone, by email. They're available for you as a resource. Okay? They deal with claim issues every day, all day. They know the questions to ask. They know who to contact. Okay? So I would highly encourage everyone to use them if you are trying to deal with any kind of an issue. For 401k plan, I don't have anything to add on the 401k. Any changes?
We don't have anyone here from the outside representing the 401k plan, which is an ongoing benefit that you can enroll in and make changes to throughout the year. It's not just at open enrollment. However, open enrollment is a good time for us to remind you of our 401k plan because SHP does match up to 5%. So if you put in a minimum of 5% of your pre-tax dollars, you'll get the full match, which doubles your money, because SHP will also put in 5%. And again, you can do this at any time throughout the year But if you're looking at your benefits, now's a good time to look at your 401k.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I might add that on ADP, always there is a link to go straight into the standards website, and you can do an online enrollment guided. It takes about 15 minutes. So if you're not sure exactly what plan you want or how to put your fit in, that is there and available always also.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. In terms of resources, Meg, Kelly, and Norma are going to be available at some dedicated times. So those times are listed here. So the 20th from 1 to 3, the 27th from 9 to 11 a.m., and then also Wednesday, December 5th, 9 to 11 and 1 to 3 as well. Okay. So if you have any specific questions, they're certainly available as resources. In addition to this session here, we're also doing 2 additional webcasts that are, I believe, tomorrow and Friday. So those are available for anybody to participate in as well. Any questions? Okay. Just a couple of final closing thoughts. Again, use the resources that you have available. Ask any questions that you have. Now's the time to think about your benefits and what options make the most sense for you in your particular circumstances. In order to get the lower level of premium contributions, the wellness affidavit does in fact need to be completed. If you're going to be making HSA contributions or participating in the FSA benefits, that enrollment is done through the ADP system. Okay? If you're going to be participating in the opt-out credit that we talked about, okay, there is a form to be completed for that as well. Okay? Again, December 7th is the deadline by which all enrollment changes need to be made for 2019. And then any of those changes will be effective January 1. So the benefits that you elect, with, like I said, the exception of the HSA contributions or the 401k for that matter, will remain in place for the full 2019 plan year unless you have a qualified life event. Other questions? Like Meg mentioned, I'll be around afterwards, the other folks will be as well. So let us know any questions that you have. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
If anybody wants to sign up for My Health Map, I could do it here.
Thank you.
Otherwise, you can go back to the link on the email.